Fisk thinks he owns Hell's Kitchen, but I know his plans. I will stop him.
Today we are strapping on the horns and stepping back into the brutal, politically charged streets of Hell's Kitchen. We're going to tackle the ultimate vigilante dilemma. We're taking a deep dive into the high-stakes return of Daredevil, Born Again Season 2.
And for fans, it's a moment filled with just a ton of hope, but also a lot of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Hell's Kitchen has always been about moral compromise, but after that huge creative overhaul that hits Season 1 mid-production, the tension is just at a boiling point.
The pressure is definitely on.
It is.
Yeah.
The showrunners have to deliver a Matt Murdock that really honors the grit and, the psychological complexity that defines him.
And that tension is really the core of our mission today. We're looking at a whole stack of sources, speculative reviews, some very detailed plot leaks, confirmed production details, and they're all circling one huge question.
Which is?
Has Marvel finally ruined the definitive version of Matt Murdock by pushing his moral boundaries way too far?
It's a legitimate fear.
It is. And this isn't just about reviewing a show. It's about assessing narrative risk. We need to unpack these reported changes, gauge the danger they pose to his core character, and figure out what the showrunners are even trying to do by taking him to this breaking point.
Is it character evolution or?
Character assassination, exactly.
Okay, so let's get into the setup, because the structure for Season 2, it just completely changes the game.
It's a whole new battlefield.
The conflict is way beyond back alleys now.
Yeah.
The reports confirm that Wilson Fisk, our Kingpin, is no longer just pulling strings from the shadows.
No, he is officially the mayor of New York City.
And this isn't some subtle political move. It is a complete redefinition of the threat. Matt Murdock, the lawyer, his whole life is built on fighting for justice within the system by day.
So he can fight outside it at night.
Right. But now the law itself is the weapon. Fisk has, and this is the term used, weaponized the law, turning the very thing Matt swore to protect against him.
And what's so fascinating is how it just neutralizes Matt's main defenses. Fisk's new laws reportedly declare every masked hero in the city a criminal.
So it's not just about defending Hell's Kitchen anymore.
No, he has to defend his own existence and every other hero's. And he's up against the entire city government, the police, everything.
And if we look at the source material, the comics, this is pulling from some really dark places, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. This is a direct dive into two of the darkest arcs. You've got Devil's Reign, which is Fisk's anti-vigilante crusade from the mayor's office.
Okay.
And then you have Shadowland, which is all about Matt's moral fall. The show is basically forcing him into this impossible spot where he's fighting for justice against the state itself.
I think the leak that really drives home Fisk's power, for me, is the one about him targeting Matt's lifelines. His legal and financial lifelines.
It's not just about more cops on the street.
Not at all. It says Fisk is using zoning laws, tax enforcement, even restricting public defenders to just choke the legal aid system in places like Hell's Kitchen.
The exact places Nelson and Murdock served.
Exactly. He's systematically cutting off all of Matt's nonviolent options. If he can't fight in court, and being Daredevil is now technically terrorism, the whole environment is designed to just shatter Matt's core belief.
That the law, even if it's flawed, has to be respected.
Yeah.
And that structural change, that's the framework. It's what forces him into this new, very controversial direction.
Right. When the law is the villain's tool, the hero has to change his playbook.
Which brings us to the most contentious part of this whole thing.
This is where the risk becomes, I think, really palpable for the character. The scale of the threat from Mayor Fisk.
Yeah.
It means Matt can't do his solo act anymore.
He can't.
So the key shift, and this is across multiple leaks, is that Matt is forced to stop working alone. He starts putting together what they're calling an underground resistance.
Basically a vigilante army.
A vigilante army, yeah. A network of street-level heroes. And we know it's concrete because they've confirmed Kristen Ritter is back as Jessica Jones.
Which solidifies that whole network idea.
So the man who is defined by his isolation, the Catholic guilt, the solo fights, the massive trust issues, is now basically running a paramilitary operation.
And think about the cost of that. We're seeing two totally different versions of Daredevil here. You have the intimate warrior, right? The lone vigilante fighting for one neighborhood. And now you have a leader, a general fighting a political civil war across the entire city.
And the sources really question that, don't they? They ask if this just dilutes what makes him unique.
It's the critical question. Daredevil's defining trait isn't just that he's a great fighter, it's that solitary struggle, the constant battle between his faith, the law, and his own rage.
Giving him an army, it kind of takes away that personal burden.
It does. It turns this deep internal moral conflict into a strategic command problem. And that's a huge risk for the character's integrity.
And that risk just gets bigger when you factor in the Shadowland stuff they're adapting.
Right. If the army is the strategic compromise.
Then the next step is the moral one. The reports say that with Fisk's grip tightening, Matt does something radical. He creates a fortified safe zone in Hell's Kitchen.
A sanctuary.
A sanctuary, yeah. Outside Fisk's jurisdiction where Daredevil's law rules.
And that is the absolute peak of narrative danger right there.
Because he's becoming Fisk.
He is. If he's making his own rules and enforcing them in his own little kingdom, he is turning himself into an authoritarian figure. He becomes the very unchecked power he's supposed to be fighting. The sources are not subtle about this. This is him crossing a profound moral line.
Willingly.
Willingly. And think about the psychology of that. For a character defined by Catholic guilt, by his deep respect for the spirit of the law, to set himself up as judge, jury, and, ruler, it's the complete inversion of everything he believes in.
Yeah, for fans worried he's been ruined, this is Exhibit A.
It's their central piece of evidence. It's a huge narrative gamble.
And it can only pay off if the writers make us feel the agonizing weight of that choice. It can't feel like a win.
No, it has to feel like a soul-crushing necessity. The show needs to really show him questioning himself, maybe even hallucinating something to earn that massive shift.
If they just treat it like a cool plot point.
Hey, let's bring in more heroes.
Right. Then they fail. It has to be shown as an act of desperation. The last resort of a good man who has run out of every other option. The cost has to feel higher than the benefit.
Precisely.
Okay, so this tension, this need for darkness, but also for emotional grounding, it brings us to some of the elements that are making people feel a bit of relief.
Yes, because despite this incredibly dark path for Matt, it seems like the creative team is correcting course on the relationships that anchor him.
And the biggest one, the one that signals a real return to the soul of the original show, is the return of Deborah Ann Wool as Karen Page, and Eldon Henson as Foggy Nelson.
Thank goodness. It's absolutely necessary. This feels like a direct response to the massive fan backlash about the rumor that Foggy was killed off screen.
It has to be.
The writers know Matt Murdock's struggle is meaningless if we don't see why he struggles. And Foggy and Karen, they're his tether. They're his humanity.
Foggy's the moral compass, the legal idealist. Karen's the investigative engine and the emotional heart.
Without them, Daredevil is just a fighting machine. So bringing them back, even if it's in flashbacks showing his grief or if they're in hiding, it makes sure the human consequences of his war remain the driving force.
Absolutely. Without them, the fight with Fisk is just a territory dispute. With them, it's a fight for the soul of the city and the people Matt loves.
It raises the stakes beyond just a superhero brawl.
And speaking of brawls, we also have Wilson Bethel confirmed to return as Bullseye, which, when you pair that with the dark plot leaks, it really suggests they're leaning back into that gritty, raw violence and psychological conflict from the Netflix run.
And Bullseye serves two functions there. First, he's the action. He's a physical threat who knows how to get under Matt's skin.
For perfect foil.
Perfect. But second, and maybe more importantly, his return helps answer that big question. Can this show recreate the visual and emotional grit of the original? Or is it going to feel too glossy to MCU standard?
Right. The dark lighting, the long hallway fights, the visible exhaustion and blood. That was part of the show's DNA.
It was non-negotiable for fans. If Matt's going down this dark path, the show has to look and feel like a descent into hell, not just another shiny spectacle. The tone has to match the ambition.
It needs to feel like he's agonizingly crawling out of a pool of his own blood in a stairwell, not taking a victory lap after a clean CGI fight.
Exactly. The Bullseye news is a very good sign that they understand that.
So if we pull all of this together, what's the big picture? The
big picture is that the showrunners aren't just stumbling into this controversy. They are intentionally pushing Matt to his absolute limit. The real tension isn't just Matt versus Fisk.
It's Matt versus himself.
It's Matt Murdock versus his own definition of justice. He's being forced to ask if his moral code, never kill, never lead, always work within the system, is a luxury the city can no longer afford.
So, the final verdict from the sources we're looking at, what does it all mean for the character? Is he ruined?
The conclusion they reach is actually really specific and I think, powerful. They argue Marvel hasn't ruined Matt Murdock.
They've deliberately broken it.
Deliberately broken him. And that distinction is everything. Ruining a character means you misunderstand them. You dilute what makes them great.
But breaking them.
Breaking him is a deliberate story choice. He's forced to compromise his most fundamental beliefs because his enemy, Mayor Fisk, is operating completely outside the rules of fair play.
It's an act of desperation, not a change of heart.
That's the idea. And that's where the success of the whole season hinges. It all comes down to one thing. Does the show commit to showing the agonizing consequences of his choices?
The cost of leading that army, of enforcing his own law.
Yes. If they gloss over that, if they romanticize it, if they shy away from the true horror of that compromise, the weight on his soul and his relationships, then yeah, the critics will be right. The character was ruined.
But if they embrace the moral ugliness...
then it could be the most compelling character story we've seen in the MCU in years.
Okay, so as you process all of this, here are the big takeaways from our deep dive. 1, Fisk as mayor is the catalyst. It changes the entire fight. 2, this forces Matt into a crisis where he has to risk becoming the very thing he fights, an authoritarian leader, just to save his city.
He has to become a monster to fight one.
And 3, the return of Karen and Foggy is the crucial emotional anchor. They keep the fight personal and grounded, even as Matt's actions get more extreme.
And as you wait for this new season, maybe leave yourself with this thought to mull over.
Go for it.
If fighting a corrupt system requires you to cross your own moral lines, if you have to compromise so deeply to achieve justice, does the fight itself just inevitably poison you, even if you're doing it for the greater good? What's the real cost of victory, when you have to wear the enemy's face to win?